We are live. So you can see, well, we're live, but recorded somehow. So you can see that I am sort of embracing the spooky sort of look over here. I have found a little corner where I have a chair that I can sit on, and there's some windows behind me. And I was thinking, since we have October and the Spooktacular is starting soon, that it would be kind of fun to decorate this corner, because obviously I can't hang things that would damage the house in any way. So I was thinking that maybe these curtains and the rods up there would allow me to decorate a little bit. Plus I can set some things on the floor here that you might be able to see. So look forward, hopefully, to some cool decorations starting to show up here in the next, like Friday's coffee chat. With the entrance of spooky season, I also saw this at the supermarket and had to grab it. Ghost Hunting. It's a magazine that says Secrets of the Supernatural, Investigating the Paranormal. And it says it's with Amy Bruni and Adam Berry of Kindred Spirits on Discovery Plus. And I actually just signed up for a year of Discovery Plus because they had it on sale for $35 for the year. And that's the one that's going to have like commercials and ads. But I really wanted to watch Hot Mess House and some of the HGD TV shows. I think that Joanna Gaines, her new show is on Discovery Plus. Plus you can get Ghost Adventures and some other things that I personally love. I don't watch a ton of TV. I watch more like Netflix or anime type stuff if we get a chance. But I've been looking for ways to relax a little bit. So I think I'm going to check out this Kindred Spirits show. And I haven't had a chance to really look through this magazine, but it might be kind of fun. So let me know if you've gotten it too, because I've seen it in a lot of different grocery stores. This was $15 for a magazine though, which is excessive in a lot of ways, but hopefully it'll be worth it. And there'll be some good spooky tales in there. So I've got that. Then I also have I have limited things here on the road with us, but I did bring some things knowing specifically that I would not want to go through October Spooktacular Halloween time without some of my spookier decoration type things. So I switched out my Erin Condren planner cover. This was something that was easy to bring with me, was a planner cover that had some ghosts on it. I used this one last year, so it's nothing new, but this year they do have one that is like pumpkins that have sparkles on it, like maybe rose gold or something like that. And I'm kind of sad that I don't have it, but my cousin is already laughing at me because she's like, okay, I'm having to expand my space because I've been sending all my mail and packages to her. So she's like, wow, you get more stuff than I expected. And I have like pared way, way down, but I'm going to have to keep paring down because I don't want it to become a burden on her. But I'm not buying new things. I'm reusing older things. I love this. This is just a planner I kind of created this myself. They have a monthly planner where you have just a monthly calendar like this, and then a few different pages, like blank note pages afterward. So it's not like a weekly planner. It just has the monthly planner. Well, I took that one apart and only kept the pages to December. And then it's all a bunch of it's a full size notebook in the back. And of course, this one is one that Evie has written on. So she has put her signature on there. But I am using this for a lot of my brainstorming, like all the Spooktacular giveaways and ideas are in here and that kind of thing. So I've got that set up. And then I also switched from my pretty pink Kiki K to this gorgeous black one that has like gold studs to it, and it also has this little heart chain here, and I decorated it on the inside with some of my kind of spookier things. So I've got this little Minnie Mouse that has like a Frankenstein look to it, and my little witchy things, some of my book covers, and these little things here, like this dashboard, these are from Studio Adorkable. She made these for me, and I don't know, or she made them and I think she didn't put them on sale and she sent them to me even though she had not put them up for sale. So I'm not sure if she will have them for sale or not, but look at the little like witch and the little book of spells and the potions and stuff. These are so, so cute. And she sent these to me last year and I just never had a chance to use them all. So I had to bring them with me. So that is kind of my new setup. And I've got these little, I don't know how well I'll be able to hold it up, but you can see kind of on the edges over here, there's some little black sparkly bats. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it makes me so happy just to be getting ready. I've also been getting ready for my Q4 planning, which is taking time. And I was talking about this on my Instagram stories earlier. Is like, I'm a little bit behind, but we found out we had to completely uproot our lives and sell everything or get everything into storage while I was prepping and getting ready to run 2 different courses and appear at the NINC conference. And ever since we found out we had to leave and we were packing up everything, I have not had a week that wasn't like dedicated to my students or to a conference or to, something like that. So this has been a time of rest for me. And I'm just going to say it here again, like I said it in my stories for Heart Breathings earlier, that rest can be productive. So just sometimes I think we feel like we just have to get it all done, or we have to move, or we feel guilty if we take a little bit of time to rest. And, if you're like me and you're moving all the time, don't forget to rest, because it is productive. But it has also put me a little bit behind my quarterly planning. So I've been sitting outside today while the kids were in the pool. But now Evie's down for a nap. So I'm going to get this recorded. And by the time I record episodes 15, 16, and so on, I'm going to try to batch record a few to give myself a little bit of being a little bit ahead. You guys should start to see some decorations come up. I already have bought a few things, but I haven't bought a lot yet. So hopefully by Friday, and then for next week's episodes, you'll see some of that stuff going up. So I also, I don't know if this will show up, but on my phone, I have this little skeleton that comes up and drinks coffee. Oh, wait, hold on. I don't know if I can get it to stay where it'll show. How fun is that? He drinks coffee and then he turns into a coffee skeleton. My husband was like, that would be even cooler if when it drinks the coffee, it turns into like a normal looking human, which I think is funny. But if you have a Samsung phone, you can go to themes. And I think this was like $2 to buy it for the month. Well, I mean, you can buy it and use it forever, but I just like to switch out my theme every month. So I am all ready for spooky season. I also, if you see darkness under here, I'm not wearing a black bra. I am just wearing a bathing suit. My first ever 2-piece like bikini bathing suit that I've worn in years and years, not because my body is amazing, but because I'm finally just like, I want to wear a bikini, so I'm going to wear one. And it's been great. But I've been out with the kids, so I've got a little bit of bikini on as well as this. And I've still got my sunglasses on up here. So we are just having some rest and fun times here. But I want to go ahead and get on with episode 14 for you guys. So this is Demons Forever. And what happened in the last episode is that Sarra appeared and helped. She had already gotten together with Jackson, and they had created some potions that made both Celine and Honora, which are Zara's 2 older sisters, fall asleep. And so they were able to get Angela out of Winter Haven and back to the Crow Village. But when they got there, Marianne, who has been doing all this work to get the Crow Village ready to look presentable for them to live in for a while and hide there, was like, we're not letting Sarra in. Her mother, she comes from the wrong kind of family. And Harper was kind of like, well, so do you. So both of you come from families that tried to kill me. And Marianne's like, okay, point taken. So they do give Sarra an armband, and the armbands are made with a drop of Marianne's blood, which allows them to get inside the Crow Village. So if Priestess Winter wanted to get into the Crow Village, she couldn't get in, because this barrier there is done with a specific kind of magic, which you guys will learn more about. Like I said, if you read the Sacrifice Me series and continue on, you would learn a little bit more about that. But basically, Harper is talking to Sarra about, how could you have lived there for all that time knowing what kind of monster your mother was? And Sarra is like, you know what? I'm not sure that is my mother. It looks like her. But ever since my grandmother died, my mom acts more like my grandmother than she does like herself. And so it's like, is it the ritual that's changing people the way that Brooke, what happened with Brooke? Or is it the fact that her grandmother is, what's going on there? Is it something about becoming Priestess Winter that turns you into this? And what does that mean? So they're all trying to figure it out. But we are also going to move into the next part of this, which is episode 14 and chapter 56, the typical human lifetime. Sometime that night, I finally gave in to exhaustion and collapsed in a bedroom Jackson had set up for me. He'd picked out a gray house for the 2 of us to share and spent a lot of time making it livable. I hated being away from my sister's bedside, but I couldn't keep my eyes open another second. Hours later, Jackson burst into my room out of breath. "What is it?" I asked, terror gripping my heart. Were we being attacked? "She's awake," he said, a smile dancing in his green eyes. "Your sister's awake, and she's asking for you." My heart skipped. I jumped from the bed, ran down the stairs, and out into the street. Zara's flowers were still bright, lighting up the entire village. Essex and Marianne sat in two chairs they had dragged from one of the houses nearby. I didn't even care about my tangled mess of hair or the fact that my clothes were probably crazy wrinkled. I just wanted to see my sister. I wanted so badly to shift and travel to her faster than my legs could carry me, but we'd agreed not to use demon powers if we could help it. It was too easy to track. I ran instead, barreling up the steps to the small blue house. I tore down the hallway and pushed into the bedroom. Zara sat by the bed but stood when she saw me. She smiled and stepped quietly out of the room. Angela King's eyes met mine, and my heart overflowed. I sat down on the bed and took her hand. We couldn't stop staring at each other. "Oh, Harper, I don't even know what to say." Tears filled her eyes as she gripped my hand tighter. "I want to yell at you for risking so much to come get me, but I also know I can never thank you enough for what you did." "I couldn't just leave you there," I said. I wanted to throw my arms around her, but was scared I'd hurt her. "After seeing what they were doing to you, I'm glad we got you out of there. How are you feeling?" She shuddered. "It was horrifying," she said. "I kept having the same nightmare over and over. Everyone and everything I've ever loved kept being ripped from me. It felt so real and so painful. I feel much better now, just a few sore spots here and there." "It's all my fault," I said, lowering my head. "If it wasn't for me, they would never have taken you." Angela sat up straighter, and I helped her readjust the pillow behind her back. "You can't blame yourself for the actions of evil people," she said. "You aren't responsible for their choices." Her words touched a deep place inside my heart. They were an echo of something our father had told me. It was so easy to blame myself for all that had happened, but she was right. I couldn't control what others decided to do with their lives. Our eyes met again, and my heart fluttered. "It's so strange to be sitting here with you like this and to know you're really my sister," I said. "I mean, I always dreamed of something like this, but I never thought it was really possible. And now to have finally met both my father and my sister, it's a dream come true." "I wanted to tell you so badly," she said. I swallowed. "How long have you known?" She raised an eyebrow and smiled. "Since the first moment I saw you," she said. "Do you remember that day? You had just gotten to Peachville High and you passed out in front of the demon statue. I rushed over to help you. When our hands touched and I saw that necklace, I knew it was you. You have no idea how hard it's been to keep that secret." "Why did you?" I asked, trying not to sound hurt. "I couldn't tell anyone," she said. "The Order has ways to extract memories and secrets. Telling you would have put us both in danger. It was too risky. I couldn't draw any unnecessary attention to myself." I, I have so many questions," I said, not even knowing where to start. "We have time," she said with a smile. "I'm sure you've figured out by now that our lives are going to be much longer than the typical human lifetime." My eyes widened. I honestly hadn't even thought about that. "How much longer?" "It depends on whether you spend more time here or in the shadow world," she said. "The more time we spend over there, the stronger our demon half becomes and the longer our lives become." I still had so much to learn, so many decisions to make. "Why did you stay here?" I asked. "If you've known who you were all this time, why wouldn't you leave the Order behind and live with our father where he could keep you safe?" Angela's eyes searched my face, a sad smile pulling at the corners of her mouth. "Because I knew eventually they would find you," she said. "If I was living in a castle in the shadow world, I wouldn't have any way to really help you or keep an eye on you. I stayed because I knew if I played their game and pretended to be a good member of the Order, training the initiates, I could be there for you whenever you came home. I could get close to you without looking suspicious." "You did that for me?" I asked, my face warm. Our father wasn't happy about it, she said. He wanted me to live in the shadow world where he could keep me from going through the initiation, but I couldn't abandon you like that. You'd never even met me. That didn't matter, she said. You were my sister, and I knew you'd come home someday. I wanted to be there when you did. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't believe she'd gone through so much for all these years waiting for me to return to Peachville. I always used to wonder if you'd look like me, she said, but you don't look like me at all. You definitely take after your mother. I was just a little girl when she used to babysit for me, but I thought she was the coolest. She was so beautiful and such a rebel. I was incredibly sad when she died. It was a really rough time for me. My father had just up and left our family out of the blue, and we didn't know where he was. And then Claire died. I felt abandoned. I've been wondering about that, I said. I tried talking to him about Mom and about you when I was living in his castle, but he's a hard man to get to know. She laughed, to say the least. He mentioned something about leaving Peachville just before Mom died, I said. I didn't realize he didn't tell you where he was going. One day, everything seemed fine, and the next, he was gone without a trace, she said. At the time, my mother and I had no idea why. How did you find out who he was? I asked. Did he come back for you? He showed up at my house just before I turned 18, she said. My mom had a meeting with the order, so I was home alone. There was a knock on the door, and when I opened it, there he was, like he'd never even left. His hair was lighter and his eyes had changed a little, but I knew it was my father. My mouth fell open. What did you say to him? I asked. I probably would have slammed the door in his face after what he'd done. I almost did, she said. Something in his eyes stopped me, though. He looked so serious. He said he was there to tell me something very important, but that he couldn't stay long, and I needed to listen very carefully. He told you about the order? Yes, she said. She smoothed the blanket over her legs and stared down at her hands. It was a lot for me to take in at the time. I'd grown up thinking the order was great, full of powerful, beautiful women. But as he talked, I realized everything he said made sense. The way the order controlled everyone in town, the way my mother acted sometimes keeping secrets from me about the initiation ritual. He told me everything that night. He told me about the demons, about who he was, and why he'd had to go so suddenly. I swallowed. Something about his father dying? His father died fighting the order, Angela said. He's never told me all the details, but I know it happened here in the human world in a town called Clement in Tennessee. After that happened, it was Father's duty to take over as ruler of the Southern Kingdom. He didn't have a choice but to leave us. I took in a deep breath and let it out slowly. I tried to imagine what that must have been like for her, growing up without a father and then having him suddenly show up and tell her he was a demon king. He also told me about you, she said. Of course, all of us girls on the cheerleading squad knew our town's prima was missing. We knew the story and that someday she would come back to us, but it wasn't until that night that I knew the prima was my own half-sister. I sat back. So, all in that one night, you found out how evil the order really is, how they enslaved demons, and that you, in fact, were half demon. And at the same time, you had to find out that your half-sister was a future prima. Yes, she said, nodding. It was a lot to take in, but I had an important decision to make. I was only a few weeks away from my initiation. I had to decide whether to go back with my father to the shadow world or whether to go through with it and become a member of the Order of Shadows. I don't understand why he waited so long to tell you the truth, I said. He should have given you more time to make up your mind. He felt the information put me in danger, she said. He wanted to keep me safe and innocent as long as possible. Besides, it worked out in my favor. I narrowed my eyes at her. How? If I had known when I was little what the order was really all about, I never would have joined the cheerleading team in the first place. Instead, I gladly became one of them, she explained. They trusted me, which allowed me to eventually become a leader within the Peachville Order. It put me in the perfect position so that when you finally did come home, I could be there waiting for you. I still couldn't believe she'd chosen to stay in the Order and put her life at risk just to help me. No one had ever done something so selfless for me. If it hadn't been for you, I would have felt so lost. And if you hadn't been there to warn me about how the demon tattoo allowed them to keep an eye on me, I probably wouldn't have ever been able to get my memory back. Everything would have turned out completely different. I thought of the night I'd gone to the third floor to retrieve the recipe for the elixir of Kindria. If I hadn't known how to hide myself from the Order's watching eyes, they would have stopped me for sure. There were so many times I thought I was going to lose you, she said. The Halloween ball was the worst. I went looking for you, but I knew you could be anywhere. I hoped Jackson would be able to keep you safe, but as soon as I heard the Order had taken you prisoner, I thought I had lost you forever. The important thing is that we're together now, I said. We have so much lost time to make up for. I have no idea how you survived against the hunters and everything Priestess Winter has thrown your way, but the fact that you actually broke into her house to save my life is honestly a little unbelievable, she said. I wouldn't have made it without Zara's help. I looked away. And Coach King's. She paused. Roan? She asked. I thought they killed him. Sarra was supposed to finish him, but she didn't, I explained. She gave him a note for me and let him go. He barely made it to the castle in time to tell us everything that happened. She cleared her throat and swiped at her eyes. Father couldn't save him? I shook my head. I'm sorry. Roan and I had been together since I was 18. Father sent him to watch after me. She laughed through her tears. It was his idea to use the last name King, kind of a joke, right under the nose of the Order. Did you love him? I asked. She sniffed. In a way, she said. We weren't in love with each other, if that's what you mean, but he was always looking out for me, always paying attention to what was going on in the Order, trying to guess their next move or make sure no one was in a position to hurt me. I can't believe he's gone. They'll pay for what they've done. I'll make sure of that. I know Priestess Winter is going to send everything she has at me now, I said. We need to be ready, find a way to trick her or weaken her in some way. What are you thinking? Angela said. I assumed we were heading back to the Southern Kingdom for a while. I shook my head. We're not going to run, I said. We're going to end this one way or another. If you need to go there to rest and get better, I completely understand, and we'll help you get there safely, but I'm in this now for real. I won't stop until I've destroyed the Order of Shadows. My sister stared at me for a long moment, then nodded her head. I'm not going anywhere, she said. We clasped hands again, and I realized Honora had been wrong. Having a sister was more than I ever dreamed it could be. Chapter 57, Family Tree. Our small group gathered in the middle of the village the next morning to share breakfast. Angela was feeling much better already, her body healing rapidly now that she was awake. It's part of my power, she explained. I can heal others, but I have also always been a very fast healer if I focus my energy inward. Marianne and Essex had brought out more chairs and had even managed to scrounge a mismatched set of plates and glasses. There were 6 of us all together, and we sat down to enjoy pancakes, eggs, bacon, and orange juice. Where did we get all this food? I asked. We certainly hadn't carried it here in our backpacks. I thought we agreed no one should risk going into town unless it's an emergency. Marianne laughed. This is one of the perks of hiding out here in the village. she said. My family members hated leaving the nest, so they always stockpiled food in this big freezer in the basement of the Crow Mother's house. I didn't mention it before because I wasn't sure any of the food would still be good. Turns out the freezer was still working this whole time. Wow, Jackson said. This is incredible. How much is left in there? Enough that we could feed at least 50 people for a month or longer, Marianne said. My eyes grew wide. This was definitely good news. If we needed to, we could stay here indefinitely, as long as no one discovered we were here. I poured a tall cup of coffee and loaded it with cream and sugar. Then I stood and clanged my spoon on the side of the mug to get everyone's attention. I wanted to take a second to say thank you, I said. You've all taken a huge risk by being here with me, and I want you to know how much I appreciate it. Jackson placed his hand on mine, and Sarra smiled up at me. We want to be a part of this just as much as you do, Marianne said. I want a front row seat to the destruction of the all-powerful Order of Shadows. We need a plan first, Angela said, before taking a huge bite of her eggs. It all starts with Airden, I said, looking to Jackson. I sat back down and loaded my plate with food. Now that my sister was feeling better, my appetite had returned in full force. In the shadow world, Harper and I came across a book, Jackson explained, a diary of one of the original creators of the order. Sarra gasped, her fork clanging to her plate. What is it? I asked. The diary. Did it have a butterfly engraved on the front? I swallowed, my mouth growing dry in an instant. Yes, I said. Do you know something about it? I've heard my mother mention it specifically, she said. You're right about it belonging to an original member of the order, Alexandra, I think, the youngest. Excitement shot through me. This was proof the book was real. And if the book was real, that meant the spell was real too. Beneath the table, Jackson gripped my leg. What else do you know about it? In order to understand the origins of the book, you need to understand my family's history, she said. There were 5 sisters who started the Order of Shadows, young witches in a coven near D.C. where my family lives now. Eloisa was the oldest, the first priestess Winter. I am her direct descendant. She's my great-great-great-grandmother, or something like that. Sarra leaned over and reached under her chair into the small white bag she'd brought with her when she came. She pulled out a piece of white paper and a set of sparkly gel pens in various colors. Here, I'll draw it out so it's easy to understand, she said. Over 1,000 years ago, a demon named Mythic came to our world and fell in love with a human woman named Aliana. She wrote their names at the top of the page. I remembered them from my first lessons about the Order's history. They had a daughter named Callista. She was the first ever witch to exist, a half-demon, half-human hybrid. I'm going to skip all the stuff in between, but one of Callista's direct descendants was a woman named Haven, she said. She wrote the name at the top of a family tree, then drew 5 lines out from that in different colors. She was born just over 200 years ago. Haven had 5 daughters, power-hungry sisters who created the Order of Shadows. Eloisa was the oldest, then Hazel, Magda, Gladys, and finally Alexandra. Eloisa created the first demon gate, which is my home gate at Winterhaven. And the diary we found belonged to Alexandra? I asked. Sarra circled her name on the page. Yes, her descendant is Priestess Love. She lives in Frankfurt, Germany, where the 5th original gate was opened, and is the head priestess over all of the European demon gates. My eyes widened, and my hand went to my throat. I didn't know there were gates in Europe, I said. Zara's light blue eyes met mine. Oh, yes, she said. The Order has gates all over the world. I gasped. All over the world? I never realized how far the Order's power had spread. No wonder demons were so afraid of fighting back. The Order's influence stretched across the human world and even into the shadow world. Who knew where else they might have already invaded? What if there were other dimensions with gates and portals here in this world? Thinking of it took my breath away. Destroying the order would take decades, if it was even possible at all. I grabbed my drink from the table and placed the cool glass against my flushed skin. Every time I felt like I was getting a handle on things, I realized the order was much bigger than I'd imagined. "Can you explain to me about the gates?" I asked. I needed to understand the structure of the order so I could bring them down, one by one if I had to. "How many are there, and how do you know which priestess is in charge of which gate?" "There are 5 priestesses who make up the High Council. Each of the priestesses is a direct descendant of one of the 5 sisters," Sarra said. "To begin with, each sister opened one gate of her own. These were the original gates, which used 5 separate colored stones. Like I mentioned, Eloisa's gate was the first, a blue portal in DC at Winterhaven." I listened carefully. "These 5 original gates are by far the most powerful," she said. "Once the sisters learned to open additional portals of each color, they began opening gates all over the world." "Using their rings as anchors," I said, putting it all together in my head. "Yes. At first, they were each in charge of a color of gate. For example, the Winters were in charge of all the blue gates around the world," she explained. "However, that became difficult since they are spread out. In order to make it easier on themselves, they eventually decided to assign regions instead. Since Priestess Winter's home is in the eastern part of the US, she's in charge of all the portals in the east. Since Priestess Love's home is in Europe, she's in charge of the European gates, and so on." I nodded, feeling overwhelmed. My head was spinning with information. "The 5 priestesses meet at least once a year to discuss policies and the state of their regions," Sarra said. "Then there's the High Priestess." "Who is she? Another descendant of the sisters?" Marianne asked. Zara shook her head. "To be honest, I'm not sure. There's a lot of mystery surrounding the High Priestess. My mother doesn't like to talk about her." "Let's get back to the diary," Jackson said. "That's what's really important right now. You said it was Alexandra's?" "Yes, apparently Alexandra's descendant, Priestess Love, kept the journal a secret until a few years ago when it went missing. I know this because my mother was extremely angry about it when she found out," she said. "I've never seen her so mad." The news brought a smile to Jackson's face. He looked up, our eyes meeting. "The diary is real," he said. "It's really going to work." "What is?" Angela asked. Jackson stood, his eyes gleaming with hope. "The spell that will finally free my brother." Okay, so we have a bit of information here. Some of it, well, you get, first of all, you get the reunion of Harper finally getting to talk to her sister and speak to her as a sister, and then making the decision that they're going to stay. Because Angela could have very well been like, "We all need to go back. You're making a terrible mistake." But instead, she was like, seeing that Harper was able to make this huge thing happen, go in, do something no one ever dreamed she would be able to do by going into one of the priestesses' houses and winning, getting out alive. And so she's like, "Okay, I'm not going anywhere. I'm with you." And Harper's feeling confident, like, "We have the book, we have all these things, we're going to make it happen." But then as she learns more from Zara about how the order really is and how expansive it is, it's kind of this back and forth roller coaster feeling of like feeling confident and then also feeling like completely overwhelmed, like maybe we're in too deep and maybe this isn't going to be possible and we're going to fail. So she's got that war going on within herself. But it is huge for them to know that this book they got from Andros is real, and the spell inside could be real as well. You also get a little bit of information about the names of the other sisters and their history about Mythic and all of that, which you've heard before. And well, you've heard of pieces of it before. And you get kind of one of our first mentions of the high priestess, the mysterious high priestess. So that is going to play into the rest of the series, as well as some of the stuff that you learn here in this plays its own role in the rest of the series as well, though I won't say why. It's just important to know that whatever you learn from anyone is just potentially same thing with Mrs. Ashworth that we found out. It's like there are secrets and there are lies. So what information do you trust and what do you not trust? And so that plays into this as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure that you give it a like before you head out. Also, if you have been enjoying this and you want to support me and this channel, go ahead and share it with other people. Either share with them that they can get the first 3 books for free, or that they can listen to Beautiful Demons here for free on YouTube. The more you share, the better it is for me. So I would sincerely appreciate those shares. I am very, very much looking forward to chatting with you guys on Friday for our first coffee chat in the last couple of weeks. I'm going to have some decorations going up here, and we're going to just kind of play on the blue lighting that I've managed to set up in the last couple houses. And I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you're having a great week, and I will see you guys on Friday. See you then. Don't forget that you can leave questions for me for the coffee chat either in the Discord server or on Facebook in the Coven group. And I will see you guys over there. All right. Have a good rest of your week. See you Friday. Let me find this little end. All right. Bye, you guys.